So we're going to get back into Bootstrap. And again, we'll always start with a kind of a template file, but here's what we're going to make, something like this. I have a page, and I have, again, a large heading and a column 12 in a row, and then I stop that row, I start a new row, and I have 3 of these grayed out kind of image looking things, and they're basically placeholder images, meaning you can go to a site, we'll go to a site, and we'll place some coding, and this will create these for our page. So instead of grabbing real images, we can actually design and lay out everything and then replace those placeholder images with actual real images. And the 350 by 150 that you see here in the grayed out area, that is 350 pixels wide by 150 pixels high. And again, we can copy this code, change this number, and instantly, if you'll see on the page we're creating down below here, I grabbed one of these, I changed it to 1200 by 150 and placed it in a column 12 in a row. So again, it makes it really easy to design web pages with images, even though you might not have the real images. So again, you always want to design first and then look at that design and then code specifically for that design. Okay? So we are going to go, and I'm going to open up Text Wrangler. I'm going to go to my clean template. And again, my clean template is already connected to the Bootstrap min file that's actually in a folder called CSS where this HTML page is. And then it's also connected down here to a Bootstrap JavaScript file that's in a folder called JS for JavaScript, where this web page is. So it's already ready to go connected. Okay? And then I have a separate style sheet that I've created and will create too, that's connected or linked to this web page. So it's going to read this CSS file to make Bootstrap work, and then it's also going to read this to actually individually stylize different parts of the page. All right, so let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make a container, and again, div class equals container, and this is going to be the big box. I'm going to close it off and then make a comment like I always do, like that. Okay, now we're ready to go. Now we're going to work just inside this container here. Again, it's always container and then rows inside the container, and then the rows are broken up into columns of up to 12. Once you get to column 12, you close off the row and start another row. So we're going to go inside the container, make our first row, class equals row. I'm going to hit the return key, close it off, and I used the wrong, there we go. Okay, so that's our first row inside the container. Now again, if you look at our design, we're going to make a column 12 with the large heading here, and then we'll close off that row because that's 12 columns. That's all you can do. Close off the row, start another row, and then have these images call 4, call 4, call 4. Okay, so back to coding here. Now again, look at our design. Our design said that we need call-sm. I'll do sm. Again, you can do LG, MD, SM, XS for when those breakpoints are going to happen, when that thing is going to collapse to be used on a smaller device width, like a smartphone or a tablet. Okay? Now, again, our design calls for a large heading. And I'll just say large heading here. Okay. Now that's our first row. Okay, right there. Now if we want, we can copy that, hit the return key, and again, I like to have a couple spaces in between each row. And again, the empty space is not going to be read by the computer in our coding. So I'll paste it. Oh, and I forgot to tell it when I was closing off the row. I apologize. So closing of first row. Okay. And then here is the closing of the second row that we just copied and pasted. So closing of the second row. Okay? All right, now in this second row, if you look at our design, we have 3 call fors. Let's go ahead and make those first. Again, the columns have to add up to 12 to close off a row. So call 4, call 4, call 4. 4 plus 4 plus 4 equals 12. We can close off this row, and then down here is a whole nother row. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. But what I can do is, inside this second row that we copied, we can make a call for, just like that. Now I don't have anything in it. I took away the heading that was in it because we don't have a large heading in the second row. But I can make these call fors. And again, it doesn't matter how much space you have. So right now, I filled up a row with call 4, call 4, call 4. There is nothing in the columns, but it's all set to go. I'm going to save it. Now if I go, there's a place called Placeholder.it. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this site to create fake images in order to lay out and design the layout of how things are going to look on our page. And then we can replace these images later on. And the one I want is not the HTTP, this placeholder right here. I want this image source tag right here. And we're going to copy this whole thing I have highlighted. Go Command C to copy. We're going to go in and we're going to place them in each of these columns. So each of those call fors has an image. Okay? Now, if I just saved it. If I open it up, so here's what we have so far. Okay? Now notice right now, this does not look like this. See the spacing in between? And see how they're all kind of muddled together? Now they do collapse because it's Bootstrap. See that when the device width happens, see how they collapse? And they're collapsing on the SM. Now I could get them to collapse if I change this to MD. They'll start collapsing earlier. So it'll get to a certain width that Bootstrap recognizes as the middle, or MD, medium, excuse me. And now, if I update my page, they'll collapse a lot sooner. They were collapsing about right there, and now they're collapsing there. Okay? Now, if I do, let me just show you. If I do XS, they will not collapse, I don't think. We'll see. They're going to collapse really late, so it's going to be really small width of the screen before they collapse. So I'm going to save it, update it, and see how they still haven't collapsed. Still, they actually don't collapse. So that's not what you want, but you have control over that. That's what I wanted to show you. So I'm going to go SM for small. I hardly ever use XS. There might be a time later on that we'll tell it to do certain things at certain widths of device. So now we're back to normal. And if I update it, there it is right there. It's collapsing. Okay? Now here's the thing. There's no spacing. And also, when it collapses, see that they're all connected? They're all on top of each other. It looks like a mess. And also, they're not in the middle of the screen. If you'll see that, see how they're on the left-hand side? Well, we can do something with class names in Bootstrap for images. And let me do that now. See how this image, this is an image tag, right? We can actually go inside and give this class name that Bootstrap recognizes called img-responsive. And it'll start to do things to kind of clean up the look of these images that we can control. Okay? So notice that my cursor is inside the angle bracket of the image tag. I'm going to hit the space bar and say class equals img dash the word responsive. Okay, in quotation marks. The quotation marks make the computer read it as text. And Bootstrap has a word called img-responsive in its coding, and it'll recognize that and do something with it, specifically for images. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this class name on the first one with the quotation marks and everything. Copy it. And again, I want to hit the space bar inside that angle bracket and paste it and save it. Now they're not going to be completely clean, but see how they moved in the center? Okay, that's a start. Okay, and there's the spacing. See the spacing now? All right. Now the problem is when they get here, they don't have any empty space in between them. Okay, so what we can do is we can create some padding in between each one, padding or margin, and we'll do that in the CSS file later on and kind of clean this up. But you'll notice just that class name itself, image responsive, img-responsive, it reads it in the Bootstrap CSS file, and it does things because of that class name. Okay, so it's getting there. All right, well, let's do that. We're going to do that later on. Now we're going to build another row. Again, here's the closing container. Here's the closing of the second row we just made. Now we're going to go down here below, and we're going to make a new row. Div class equals row. And again, I'm going to make a comment. Okay? And we're going to place columns in this row. Now, if you look at the design, there we go. We have three columns. So it must be call for, call for, call for. And we have Latin text and a subheading in each one. So we're going to make one and then copy and paste the two others. So again, it's div class equals call dash, let's do SM again, for okay, and inside that column, if you remember, we have a subheading, let's say H3. And then below that, we have a paragraph. And it looks like it's lead text, so it's that clean, readable text with the class name called lead. Now, I don't have any paragraph text, so let me grab some. Lipsum, here we go. I'll grab some more, and I'll generate it. And there you go. And I'll go back, and there's that text. Now, again, the class name we're going to use for the paragraph tag that Bootstrap will do something with is class equals lead, L-E-A-D. Oops, sorry. Okay, and that'll make it nice and clean. Now again, we have total control later on if we want to add some things to lead, to change the color and the font style and the type and the font, you know, and anything we want, So, but now that we have that, I'm going to grab this column, this call for, because again, we need up to 12. We can't go less than 12 to complete a row. And we're going to go, I'm going to highlight the whole column with the subheading and paragraph, copy it, and again, I'm inside the row here, and I'm going to paste it 2 more times. Okay, so now we have 3 columns, each of span a width of 4, and that completes the row. So now, let's see. Now we have that. Okay, and again, because it's working with the Bootstrap class system, if I do this, notice that the subheadings and the paragraphs are all collapsing on top of each other at a given point. Okay, so pretty cool. And now we got one more thing. We're gonna have a 3rd row. And again, here's the closing of my, or actually a 4th row. Here's the closing of my 3rd row. I'm inside the container. Okay, I always want to stay inside that sucker. And then I'm going to say div class equals row and create another row. I can just keep going, you know, again, this, you just want to work your way from the top down, and you never want to panic. You just want to go row to row. You might have to make some changes and cleans things up, and you know, but this makes it really easy from top to bottom. So closing of the 4th row, okay, and save it. Now, if you look at our design, let me make this wider here. If you look at our design, we have call 12 in a row. Notice it's spanning all the way across, and it's 1200 by 150. Now let me show you how to do that quickly. I'm going to go into my coding. I'm going to go into the row. Let me build the column first inside that row. Div class equals call dash sm dash 12, the entire row, and I'll close off that div for the column. And then inside, I need that image, one of those images. So I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to grab this one of these right there, that whole image tag right there. And I'm going to highlight it and copy it. And then I'm going to place it and paste it down here. Okay. Now here's the thing. I don't need 350. If you'll notice on my design, it's 1200 by 150. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to change this number to 1200 and save it. And then go back to where my template. And there it is right there. Now again, because it has the word image responsive, IMG responsive, it does collapse and it gets smaller. Okay? Alright, so now what I want you to do is we're going to mess around with this, these images real quick here. So I'm going to go into Text Wrangler, and if you'll notice, up here, I'm connecting to something called first_image_page.css. This is my Bootstrap file. I don't want to touch that. But this is the custom CSS file to design this page away from Bootstrap. Okay? So what I've done is, where's that at? First image page. Here we go. So here is, remember the word img-responsive? Okay. I am adding a couple things to that class. Now right now, it's already doing a couple things that it's kind of cleaned up. But I'm actually going to add a couple things to it. And I can do that. And then we're also going to add some padding, 10% in between each of the columns, holding those small and little images. Okay? And then the footer image at the bottom, I'm going to add a margin at the bottom to get it off. If you look at the page here, let's see if this one, see how our bottom image is right at the bottom? There's no empty space below it. Well, as a designer, yeah, not so much, you know. So sometimes you don't want that. So what do? Well, you add margin bottom or padding bottom, using margin bottom. And then, again, margin means empty space, creating empty space outside an element. Padding is empty space inside an element. If I did padding, bottom padding on this image, it would actually make the image wider or thicker or higher. Okay, if I did margin, it's going to create empty white space below the image and kind of bring it up from the bottom of the page. Okay, so to do that, I just did this. Now notice there's an ID called footer image. So let's do that first. I'm going to go back into my template and go down here. And I can either talk to the row or talk to the column. Okay? And I have an ID name called footer image. So I can talk to the column right here. And again, because it's an ID name, we're going to use a number sign, or sorry, we're going to use the word ID equals footer image. And the footer is the bottom part of a page. So that's why I use that term. Okay? Now let me make sure and see. It's oh no, it's not capitalized. Good. Right here. So I'm going to uncapitalize the F because it's case sensitive. And then let's check this out here. And now it's created some empty space below it. So that's cool. Okay. Now the other thing I did was down here, I have a class name added to each of these columns holding these small little images called image call. And what I did was I created some empty space with that class name. It's getting a little confusing here. How many? Okay, so right here I created some padding. And again, padding, it's creating empty space on either side. Top, right, bottom, left. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. And image call. So to do that, I already have it set up. I just need to build the class name here. And it's right in here. And I'm going to say that, again, I can add with a space, I can add more class names than what we have. Image call. And then image call. And then image call. Now again, this class name is working with Bootstrap. This is a class name that I'm using to create some styling to these images. We had some issues with the spacing. Okay, so let me go ahead and see if that's going to work here. Let me go up. Okay, and it should happen. Yeah. So now, when this thing was collapsing, we had no space in between these images, and from a design standpoint, that was kind of funky. And all I did was I added some spacing in between, and it created that separation. So that's pretty good. All right. So what I want you to do is go into this CSS file. Again, I created one to stylize this specific page called first_image_page, and it's in that CSS folder. You can go in that and you can design the look of your page. Give it some color, change the font styling if you want, change the color of the text, maybe grab something from Color Lovers to use a certain colors that work well together, and just see what you come up with to design the page and make it look better than what I've done. Thanks.